Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to PPS Theory Sessions. So we have completed 3 units, started with very basics of computers, and then basics of C programming language, and then in the third unit we have seen conditional branching and looping. We've done multiple practices on conditional branching and looping also. So we have seen number of programs, and we have seen how we can use it also. So let us start today the 4th unit, which is array and string. Well, string is nothing but a character array. So first we are going to have a look at what is array. If we can understand array completely, then string is nothing new. It will be very easy to understand. We will be considering string as a separate topic because C does provide you string related functions, inbuilt functions. So we need to have a look at it, right? So in this unit, we are going to cover all these points. We start with the concept of array. What is array? Why we call it array, and how we can use it? What is the benefit? And then we will see one dimension and two-dimensional arrays. What is one-dimensional array? What is two-dimensional array? And for both, whether it is 1D or 2D, we will be looking at how we can declare those arrays and how we can initialize those arrays. Now, alongside, we will be also looking at how we can use those arrays, how we can access those elements, and so on. So that's the array part. And once we are done with array, we will be looking at strings, then how the string is stored, and inbuilt functions for strings. So that's the overview of the content that we need to go through. As per your syllabus, we have to cover all these points here in the 4th unit. Let us start with the array first. Excuse me. So let us understand what is array and where we can use it. So array is nothing but a fixed size. Look, I'm underlining important words here. Now, whenever you define array, you must cover all these points. Array is a fixed size sequential collection of elements having same data types that share a common name. Okay, so you can say that these 4 parts from this entire statement is important. Fixed size, sequential collection, same data type, common name. Whenever you define array, you should cover these 4 points inside your definition. Then however you form your statement, doesn't matter, your statement must cover these 4 points. Okay, structure of your statement can be anything. However you want to define it, define. It's okay. It must cover these 4 points. So array is nothing but a sequential collection of same data type elements which will share a common name, and it will be of fixed size. In a simple and short way, we can say that fixed size sequential collection of same data type elements having common name. So simply, it is nothing but a group of same data type elements. Okay, same data type elements where you can store multiple values. It's not a primitive data type, it is a derived data type, so it's non-primitive one. And where do we use it? So wherever we want to have a list of something, maybe a list of numbers, list of names, list of anything, wherever you have a list, you can use array. So for example, if you want to have a list of employees in your organization, you can use array. You want to store scores of entire class because your class may have multiple students, you need to have an array. If you want to store your customer telephone numbers, you can use array. If you want to store student names inside your college, you need to have array. So an array can store multiple values inside it, provided all those values are of same data type. And when I say multiple values, it has a fixed size. I cannot go beyond that number. And whenever I want to access any of those values, I just need to refer one common name only. Then we will see from that common name how we can access a particular value using index. So we will see that later. So these are few examples of arrays. Wherever you have a list, now that list can be integer list, can be character list, can be float list, can be double list, anything. But wherever you want to store a list, you can go for array. So let's have a look at one very basic example. For example, you want to store 100 students. Okay. So you can have a common name student, and then you can have a subscript or the index, square bracket, and inside that square bracket you define the maximum size. So when we say fixed size, so this 100, if you are declaring it, then it will be size. If you are accessing something, then it will be index or the subscript. So student is the array and square bracket 100 is the index, or it is the subscript. So actually you are going to have a list of students here. So you can have student 1, student 2, and so on, student 100. So wherever you have a list, you can use student array. Okay. So that's fine. Let's say we want to have number of students. So I'm going to use only one name, student. And then in the square bracket, I'm going to define the size or index or subscript. So let's start the types of arrays, and then we will dive in and we'll see the examples of those arrays. Wherever we have a list, it is an array, but that array, that list can be one-dimensional, or can be two-dimensional, or it can be multiple dimensional also, right? So if it is one-dimensional, you can say that, okay, it's very simple. You only have a list in one direction. Okay, only in the one direction, one-dimensional array. But when you have two-dimensional array, you can say that, oh, we are going to have two dimensions like this. We have one dimension, and inside that you also have other dimension, vertical, horizontal, and vertical. So kind of a table, we can say, right? A table which has only one row can be considered as a one-dimensional. A table which is having multiple rows and columns can be considered as two-dimensional array. And there may be multi-dimensional also. Now this is one dimension, this is two-dimensional. You can also have multi-dimensional array. Now when I say this is one dimension, if I generate columns, then it is two dimension. And if I'm going to create a cube of this one, then this can be the third dimension for me, right? So one dimension, second dimension, third dimension. So this is 3D. Now likewise, you can have 4 dimension, 5 dimension, any dimension you can create if you can visualize it, if you can understand. Now 4D and 5D, we cannot easily visualize it, so we cannot draw it. three-dimensional space we can easily draw here. But fourth and fifth and sixth and other dimensions you can think of, and if you can visualize, you can use it also. There is no limitation here. But these are the dimensions, which means I only have one list, then it requires one dimension. If I need to have two lists, okay, or more than two lists, then I should go for two dimension. But let's say I have number of lists which are even categorized, then I should go for multi-dimensional array. Okay. So like you only want to store student numbers, then one-dimensional array is enough. Only want to store student number, then one-dimensional array is enough. Let's say you want to store student number with their marks. Number with mark. So we do have two lists. One list is student number and the other list is marks. So we need to go for two-dimensional array. Now let's say if you want to store marks in semester wise, let's say semester 2 marks, semester 3 marks, semester 4 marks, semester 5 marks, and so on. Still you can have a two-dimensional array. But for example, if you have semester 2 marks subject wise, more categories inside. So you have one student will have total 8 semesters, and in those semesters that student may have 4 to 5 different subjects. Then you need to go for three-dimensional array, and so on. Okay. So this is how you can think of. Now always you need to think what data you want to store. You analyze your data first, and then you can decide what kind of data structure I should use. If everything that you want to store is having the same data type, then you may go for array. Let me clarify again. Whatever you want to store, if all those data is having the same data type, only in that case you can go for array, because array elements are of same data type. Well, so this is what the one-dimensional, two-dimensional, and multi-dimensional arrays can be, or we can visualize it like this way. Now, as per your syllabus, we need to go for 1D and 2D arrays. We'll deep dive these 2 points. We will see how we can have one-dimensional array, how we can declare it, how we can initialize it, as well as two-dimensional array, how to declare, how to initialize, how to use also. At the end of this part, we will also touch a little bit multi-dimensional array, so that you can just have an idea how multi-dimensional array will look like in a C program. Okay. So let's start with the 1D array. One-dimensional array. So a variable, just a variable name, which represents a list, because obviously if we go for array, it is a list of items. But when it will be 1D, at the time when it makes use of only one index or a subscript, only one index or a subscript. So a and then square bracket 5. Now here we have only one subscript. Then it is called 1D array. Now this is one example. Integer a of 5. Now this is how you can read. Int a of 5, square bracket 5 means you can read it like a of 5, equals to curly bracket and few numbers. So here in a square bracket, as you can see, there is only one subscript, right? So this is 1D array, and there are no more than one square brackets. If there is two square bracket, then it will be 2D array, 3 square brackets, then 3-dimensional array, and so on. So only one square bracket, which means it is 1D array. Now whenever we have an array, which means it is a collection, sequential collection. Now, when I say sequential, then one element, after that a second element will be in a sequence. This is first element, then there is a second element, then there is a third element, and so on. It will be in a sequence. Okay, sequential. And whatever value you store, those values will also be stored in a sequential manner. So like 2, 3, 5, 7, 9, and so on. Now, whenever you want to access any of these elements, so this is called element. Okay, any of these values where you actually store those values are the elements. So these square boxes we represent is an element in the array, which can store one value. At a time, it can store only one value. And those elements are referred with the index values in a square bracket. Index will always start with a 0, remember. So A is your variable name, square bracket, and then when you access particular element, it is going to be index and it starts with 0. A of 0 will refer to the first value. Then A of 1 will refer to the second value of your list. First value of your list, A of 0. Second value of your list, A of 1, and so on. So the last value of your list will be A of whatever size you have, -1. So if the size was 5, then the last element you can access with A of 4. Excuse me. Okay. So that's what the array is. Now, it is a sequential storage, remember. So for example, if this is your memory, okay, just assume that this is your memory and you declare an array A. So if you declare an array A, then it is going to have a sequential memory like this way. All your elements will be in a sequential manner. So if your array variable A is stored at let us assume address 2000, memory address 2000. It starts with memory address 2000 and it is integer array, for example. If it is int A of something, let me say 4, 5, and 6. So let us assume that we declare A of 6. Now, as long as it is integer, what is the size of integer? Can anyone post in a chat box? What is the size of integer? How many bytes integer will require? Well, 8 bits is 1 byte. Okay. And that's the size of character, Shrey. Okay. Yeah, two bytes actually. 32-bit operating system will require 2 bytes integer. 64-bit operating system may require 4 bytes and so on, but depends on the word size of your operating system. Now, generally what we go for is 2 bytes. Integer requires 2 bytes. Okay. So I can say that A of 0, if A of 0 is having address, just assume that the address of A of 0 is 2000, then A of 1 will be the address 2002, because this is going to require 2 bytes. Then the second elements will be sequentially at 2002 address, and so on. So this will be at 2002. This will be at 2004, 2006, 2008, 2010. That will be the address of all those elements. I'm not saying values. Now, when you assign some values to that, now this is how you can assign those values. We will see different ways of assignments. But let's say if I want to assign some values there, and if I assign these values, then it is going to be stored in those memory locations. Okay. So this is how inside your memory, all those values will be stored, which is having only one label, A. Now earlier, how you can achieve this? You actually go for int, then variable declarations like A, B, C, D, E, F, and so on. Now if you also want to assign values inside that, then you'll go for int A equals to 1, B equals to 2, C equals to 3, D equals to 4, E equals to 5, F equals to 6, and done. Now this is how you should achieve this earlier. This is what you were doing till now. But let's say if you have all these integer values, then the better way to go for is integer, have an array of size 5. Look, I'm saying array of size 5. So this is how you should read it, and assign values inside that array just by having curly bracket. So this looks much simpler and better way to do that thing, where we only need to have a single variable name label. Now, for example, if you want to store your entire class, then how many variables you need? If there are 60 students, you need to declare 60 variables. Now that is not feasible way. Instead of that, we can have a single variable student, which can be the array of 60 size, right? So this is much better way to handle same data type values. Okay. Yeah, so now let me have a look at few queries here, because multiple queries I can see there. Yeah. So Vyom is asking, what is the maximum limit of number of elements in single array? Well, theoretically, there is no limit. You can have any size array. Practically, there is a limit because we have a limited memory, right? So if you do have large amount of memory, you can go for large size of array. There is no limitation on usage. Just the problem is we have a limited amount of memory. That's why if you declare an array of, let's say, 1 lakh elements, and if you do not have sufficient memory, then program will not run. Okay, Vyom? What is the difference between address and index? Yeah, look, address, we just assume that 2000, 2002, 2004, all these are addresses. Now actual addresses will not look something like this. This is just for assumption, but address is actually the absolute location of your memory block. Absolute location of your memory block where that data has been stored. Whereas index is always going to be the relative. For our reference, we use index. 0 is going to refer your first element. Okay, 1 is going to address the second element, and so on. So indexes will be useful for developer. Addresses will be useful for your system to access those memory locations. Yeah, okay. Viraj is saying, sir, please don't use yellow color. It is not visible properly. Oh, fine. So now onwards, I'll make sure that I don't use that color. Okay. Vyom is saying, so what if we want to make an address void? Is there any way to break that sequence rule? Well, I don't understand. You want to make address void? We are not assigning any address. Address is being handled by the system itself. Just to visualize it is a sequential. I have given this example. 2000 is the address. It was just to visualize that it is a sequential memory location. Inside your memory, all the elements will be just one after another. Okay. Yom is also asking name of array. Or, well, A is name of array of part of representation. Yeah, A is just a variable name. Okay, just like other variables, A is a variable name. Now, when you have a subscript alongside the variable name, it becomes an array. Square bracket and some number, it is going to become an array. Now we will see how we can declare. So at that time, it will be much clearer. Yeah, even instead of A, B, C, D, E, F, you can go for A1, A2, A3, A4, A5, A6 variables. But still you need to declare A1, A2, A3, A4, A5, A6 variable, 6 different variables. So you have to declare it. Instead of that, this is much easy way to write. Okay. And yeah, some enrollment number is asking A bracket 6 denotes. Well, that's what I'm saying. A is nothing but a variable name. And when you have a square bracket, it is a subscript. When you have a subscript along with a variable name, it becomes array. So that denotes array. It denotes an array variable A having total elements 6. Yeah, I should go for 6 at this place. Okay. Well, so that's why array is important. Instead of declaring multiple variables, and if you go for large number of variables, all those variables need to be unique identifier. Now, it's very tedious task to have those many unique identifiers. So at that place, we can take help of array, where we just need single variable. We need to go for only one identifier, and along with that identifier, along with that variable name, we can have a subscript, square bracket, and we can define the size. So that is actually the size, and you will be much clear with that once you understand the declaration of array, right? So this is how we can declare. If we want to declare a variable, what we do is we go for data type and then the variable name, int a. That is the normal variable declaration. Now, if you want to declare array, then this is the syntax. Data type first, then the variable name, we call it array name here. To be specific, it is going to be array. So we say array name, otherwise it is a variable name. And then we define the size of that array in a square bracket. So whenever you are declaring your array variable, inside square bracket, it is going to be the size, total number of elements, right? So data type is nothing but the data type can be either integer, float, character, double, long, unsigned integer, anything that you think of. All primitive data types you can use here. Okay. Even non-primitive data types we can also use, but that will come later. Right now, you think of primitive data types only. So we can have integer array, we can have float array, we can have character array, we can have long array, we can have double array, and so on. Then the array name is nothing but the identifier. Whatever you want, you can declare. It must follow identifier rules. So must be maximum 31 characters, cannot be the inbuilt keyword, cannot have space in between, cannot start with the special character. It must be alphanumeric, cannot start with numbers. Exceptional case, it can start with underscore. All those were the identifier rules, right? So array name is nothing but the identifier. And then comes the size. Now size indicates the maximum number of elements that you want to store inside that array. Size must be either a numeric constant or a symbolic constant. Okay, it must be either a number, normal number, direct number, constant value, 5, 10, 15, 20 or something. Or it can be symbolic constant. Now what is symbolic constant? Can anyone define in a chat box what is symbolic constant? We have seen that in unit 1. Sorry, unit 2. Yeah, we had seen pi as a symbolic constant example. Look, pi is one example of symbolic constant. Whatever you define using hash define something is going to be the symbolic constant. Okay, so this size must be numeric constant or a symbolic constant, and it must be integer value. I should also separately write it. It must be integer value. It cannot be float value. Okay, so it is something like if you have already defined hash define capital N to be 5, then you can use like I'm going to have integer array of n. Now this is possible because capital N is a constant now. So that's what the symbolic constant is. Okay. Yeah. So this is how we can declare. Let's take an example. If I want to store, let's say 5 marks of a student. Okay. I want to store 5 marks. So I can go for float because marks can be float. So I can go for float marks and 5. Now this is how I can declare my variable. Marks is a variable. Square bracket 5 defines the size. So it is going to have total 5 elements. Now whenever I want to want to access those elements, I can still use square bracket. Marks square bracket. But when I'm using this syntax in some expression, then this square bracket value is going to be the index value. So this is something like 70.5. So marks of 0 equals to 70.5. So equals to, okay, equals to is the assignment operator. What it does, it takes the value from right side and it assigns that value to the left side. So 70.5 will be assigned to marks of 0, which means when you declare a variable marks, it is going to have 5 elements inside it. 5 elements, and all those 5 elements will have index values starting from 0, remember. So this is index value. And marks of 0 refers to the first element where you store that value 70.5. Okay. So this is how you can use your array. You can say marks of 1 equals to, let's say 80.0, then marks of 1 will have that value, and so on. So if marks of 0, marks of 1, marks of 2, all these things are on the left side of your equals to sign, you are assigning values. If it is on the right side of equals to sign, then you are accessing those values. Okay. So something like, let's say, total equals to marks of 0 plus marks of 1 plus marks of 2 plus marks of 3 plus marks of 4. So that will be the last element, marks of 4. Now that will be the last element. Now if you access marks of 5, okay, if you access marks of 5, then it is the way beyond our range of the array, right? Marks of 4 is the last element. Marks of 5 is not actually the part of our array, marks array. So that depends on the compiler and operating system that you use. Sometimes it will give you the value, sometimes it will give you the error, the array out of bound, array out of bound. So when you try to access something which is out of bound, which is beyond your range, then it gives that error. Fine. Turbo C will not give you any error. It gives you the some garbage data because you haven't stored that value. Maybe other compilers will give you error, array out of bound error. Okay, so this is one example. You can have float array, you can have character array, you can have integer array, you can have double array. Now when you are declaring, have array name, then square bracket. Inside that square bracket, you define the size, maximum number of elements. All these elements are float, same data type, don't forget. Okay. And to access those elements, we have index values. Index always starts with 0, goes up to total number of elements minus 1. Yeah. So this is one example. Now, okay. So horizontal के vertical में क्या choose करा? Look, when you say, yeah, Savan, when you say one dimension, it doesn't matter. You draw it horizontal or you draw it vertical. It is always going to be one dimension. Here, a list. So એ લિસ્ટ તમે આડું લખો કે એ લિસ્ટ તમે ઊભું લખો કાંઈ ફરક નહીં પડે, એ એક લિસ્ટ જ છે. Fine, Savan. So just depending on your space, you can draw it, but at the end, it is just a list. Fine. Dharmik is asking how it defined we get array horizontal. Oh, yeah, same question, Dharmik. So doesn't matter when you say it is one dimension. It can be horizontal. It can be vertical. It is not a matter of direction. It is just a list. कभी कभी आप लिस्ट हॉरिजॉन्टल भी लिखते हो, कभी कभी आप लिस्ट वर्टिकल भी लिखते हो. At the end, it is just a list. Okay. Vyom is asking, can we assign marks to all via single line? Yes, we can. That is called assignment, initialization, and that will be the next topic, Vyom. So I'll show you how you can initialize your values. Yeah, so I believe I'm clear. Everyone is clear with basics of array and how we can declare an array. Fine. So definitely when you want to use array, you have to declare it inside your program, and this is how you declare. Okay, data type, then array name, and then into the square bracket total size. That's the declaration. Now next comes the initialization, how we assign values. Now, assigning values can be at two different places. At compile time, so might be in some cases you want to assign some values before you start your program execution. And the second is at runtime. It might be possible that you ask user to enter those values and then you assign those user defined values to your array. So there are two different places or types with which you can assign some value to the element. Let's go for one by one, compile time, and then we'll go for the runtime. Compile time. So when we declare our array, at the same time, we want to assign some values. So compile time initialization is when we declare our array, at the same time, I want to assign some values. The syntax is going to be something like data type, array name, and size. That is how we declare our array. Now, after that size, instead of having semicolon, we will have equals to sign and we assign some values to that. Now, when we assign values at the time of declaration, we need to go for curly bracket. And inside that curly bracket, you go for all the values separated by comma, right? All the values separated by comma. So, example, integer array name is number, size is 3, and when I declare this array, at the same time I assign these three values, so square bracket 4 comma 5 comma 9. So it is going to have one array, number array, which will have 3 elements inside, and those 3 elements will have value 5 6 4 5 and 9. It will have these 3 values inside it. So number is array, 3 is the size, and the first element will have 4, second element will have 5, and third element will have value 9 inside it. The first, second, and third element will have index 0, 1, and 2. Don't forget, index will always start with 0. Okay. Yeah, still Dharmik is asking, well, Dharmik, I already told you there is no difference between vertical and horizontal. Inside your memory, it is nothing like vertical and horizontal. It is just a memory location. Now, just to represent, we draw it either horizontal or vertical. Memory के अंदर horizontal, vertical जैसा कुछ नहीं होगा. It is a sequential memory. एक के बाद दूसरा element. That's it. जैसे आपको रिप्रेजेंट करना है आप कर सकते हो. सेम नंबर को मैं इस तरह से भी रिप्रेजेंट कर सकता हूँ. 3 element number array 4 5 and 9 value, right? So both are equal. For your program both are equal. Just to represent, जैसे आपको अच्छा लगे, जो आपको easy लगे, आप represent कर सकते हो, but that is just a representation on a paper. Still addresses are going to be the same. Let's say 2050, तो इसका भी address 2050 रहेगा. आप horizontal draw करो या vertical draw करो, inside your memory it is going to be sequential. So this can be 2052 and this can be 2054 if it is integer. Okay, so this will be the addresses. Yeah. Okay, now Pankaj is asking, sir, what if we declare a of 3 and assign 4 values, then what will happen? Yeah, as I said, whenever you go beyond your range, if you go beyond the total size of your array, then it depends on the compiler and operating system where you run your program. Okay, sometimes your execution will have error. Sometimes it won't give you error. Maybe it will give you the random or the garbage value. Okay, that you just need to try now, because C language does not have strict memory restrictions. Okay, C language does not have a strict memory restrictions. That's why it is possible to have access beyond the array range. Yeah, so this is how we can initialize one-dimensional array. This is a compile time initialization. There are few more points that we need to cover here. At the compile time, if you are initializing your array, fine. Now, if your size is 5 and you assign 6 or 9 elements, then as I said, depends on the compiler. Sometimes it gives you error, sometimes it gives you garbage value or something. If you assign some value to that beyond range element, it will set it. Doesn't matter. It is going to set that value there. But what if we give less number of values compared to the size? So what if we give the number of values in the list less than the number of elements? If I have array of 5 elements, and what if I only give 3 numbers? Then what it is going to do is it is going to set remaining elements to 0. Remaining elements will be set to 0. By default, 0 value will be set to the remaining elements. And if the values in the list is greater than the number of elements, there will be an error. But as I said, depends on compilers. Okay, so this is one point. If we give less number of values, remaining will be 0. If we give more number of values, then there will be error. Still, there is one more point. If you are assigning values to your array at the time of declaration, then defining size is optional. If we assign values at the time of declaration, then size is optional. It can allocate the size automatically, which will be equals to the number of elements or the number of values we have given. Size may be omitted. Size will be set automatically, and it will be the total number of values that we assign. अगर मैं 4 वैल्यू असाइन करता हूं तो इसकी साइज ऑटोमेटिकली 4 डिफाइन हो जाएगी. रिमेंबर, एरे इज अ फिक्स्ड साइज. एक बार आपने डिक्लेयर कर दिया तो उसकी साइज आप बढ़ा नहीं सकते या कम नहीं कर सकते. तो अगर मैंने यहाँ पे 4 एलिमेंट स्टोर किए, साइज डिफाइन नहीं की है, तो इसकी साइज 4 सेट हो जाएगी. So later on, I cannot have 5 elements inside this one. Okay. So this is one more point. If you are pretty much sure that you are going to require only these many elements, तो आप size omit कर सकते हो. Other examples are, मान लो कि आपको character array define करना है, then you can have char array name, omit the size, but you define all those characters one by one. Okay. Now character array is nothing but string. So आप same character array को इस तरह से भी लिख सकते हो. Now, sorry, I made a mistake here. Let me clarify. This should be single quote. Okay. Instead of this one, it should be. Now, before I upload this PPT, I'll rectify this thing. It should be single quote J, single quote O, single quote H, single quote N, and single quote /0. Now this is a null character. Okay, it's a null character which indicates this is the end of string. Now we are going to understand this null character in much detail at the time of strings, लेकिन अभी के लिए आप इतना याद रखोगे, जब आपको स्ट्रिंग खत्म करनी है, कंप्लीट करनी है, तब आप लास्ट में null character डालोगे. Okay, so this /0 is nothing but the null character. Yeah, so this is one more example, but right now you focus that size is optional if you assign values at the time of declaration. Any more queries? So that's compile time initialization. Let us also have a look at runtime initialization. So runtime is somewhere when you start execution of your program and you receive some values from user, or maybe you are executing some loop and inside your loop you want to assign some values and so on. So it might be possible that some of the steps you have already executed, and then maybe in a loop you want to assign some values. So sum of means square bracket, and it is on the left side of your assignment operator, तो हम कुछ value assign करेंगे. 0.0 will be assigned to this element. अब ये कौन सा element है? Now here we are taking benefit of index because array is a sequential allocation, sequential memory location, and all the elements in the array will be sequential. So index values are also sequential, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so and so on. अगर आपकी इंडेक्स वैल्यूज सीक्वेंस में है तो आप फॉर लूप यूज कर सकते हो, because in a for loop we have seen that we always go for a sequential number. Now that number can be increased by 1 or 2 or 3, but here we will be increasing it by 1 only. So I equals to 0 से लेके I plus plus अगर मैं करता हूँ तो same I which is a loop control variable, मैं सेम वेरिएबल i को इंडेक्स वेरिएबल की तरह भी यूज कर सकता हूँ, सम ऑफ i. सो लूप के अंदर ये क्या बन जाएगा? सम ऑफ 0. नेक्स्ट टाइम इट विल बी सम ऑफ 1, सम ऑफ 2, सम ऑफ 3, सम ऑफ 4, सम ऑफ 5 and so on. And this is very simple. If I is less than 50, sum of I will be 0, else sum of I will be 1. तो अगर मेरा सम एरे जो है वो 100 एलिमेंट का है तो first 50 elements will have 0 value and other 50 elements will have value 1 inside it. Simple. But I just wanted to show you that you can take benefit of loop here when you are working with array, and the loop control variable itself can be used as index of the element inside your array. So that's the runtime initialization. When we execute this program, all the values either 0 or 1 is going to be set inside your array. So we have seen single dimensional array, we have seen declaration of 1D array, and we have also seen initialization of 1D array. Now before moving to two-dimensional array, what we'll do is we will go for a few programs. So in the next lecture, we are going to have a look at few programs based on array, and I'm going to show you how you can write those programs, where you declare it, how you assign some values inside it, and so on. Okay, so that's all for today. We will stop here. Next lecture we are going to see few examples of arrays, and then we will go for the 2D array. Okay, so that's all for today. If you have any query, you may ask, or you may leave this meeting now. Thank you everyone.